Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking some time out of your schedule for our How to Do GP Processes in Business Central webinar. My name is Tess, and I'm the facilitator today. And before I pass it over to Rudy, I want to remind you that if you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the questions area in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer the questions at the end of the presentation. The session will be recorded and shared with you after the event. So I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Rudy Balasabas, who is a solution specialist on our Dynamics 365 Business Central team here at Encore. So Rudy, I'll pass it over to you.
Great, thanks Tess. Hi everyone, thank you for taking time today to join this webinar. As Tess mentioned, my name is Rudy. I'm on the Business Central team here at Encore. And today I'll be going over how to do common GP processes in Business Central. I understand we have a few GP customers here that are doing the CSP EP promotion. So that promotion is giving them a demo tenant of Business Central. So this is just a background on how to do some simple processes that you're used to in Business Central. So if I just go to the next slide here. So the agenda we have is through various feedback from our customers. We have 5 processes here that I'm going to show. And we do have a part 2 of this webinar. So we've gotten a lot of feedback on numerous other topics that they want covered. So today I'll be going over how to create a new GL account, how to do a journal entry, how to run a trial balance and aging reports, how to do SmartList-like functionality in Business Central. And if I do have time, I'll go over how to process a payment run. So I kind of timed this presentation, so I'm not sure if I'll get to that, but I'll make sure to include that in the next webinar, part 2. Okay, so if I just switch into Business Central. So once you log into Business Central, you'll land on this role center. Some of you may already be playing around in Business Central and used to these screens here. So the first topic is just how to create a new GL account. So if I go to my chart of accounts here, you'll get a list of all your GL accounts. So if you scroll down, all your GL accounts will populate this list. If you wanted to create a new account, you just click new here. You'll get a blank screen with where you would fill in your details. Instead of creating a new account, I'll just go over, I'll just open one that already exists and just go over some of the basic details here. So pretty basic information that you would enter here. So your number, so that would be, this is the primary key value of this this record. So your GL account number is the name of it. So this one's a checking account. Which type of account is it? Is it your balance or income statement account? So these are important because when you do your year-end close, this is the area it looks at to see how it closes at year-end. So if it's income statement account, it'll close to retained earnings. If it's a balance sheet account, it'll roll forward to the next year. The next is account category. So is it an asset, liability, equity, and so on. Account subcategory. So is it a cash account? What type of expense is it? You can always add new categories here as you go. Okay, and then account type, I'll skip over for now. I'll go show that last. If I switch to the right side here, some things to note. Direct posting, this is an important field to turn on or off. So if this is a GL account that's a subledger account, so for example, a banking account, your AP account, your AR account, you would want to turn off direct posting because that will throw off your reconciliation if you allow posting to those accounts. So that's an important field to specify there. Blocked is another one. So if you have GL accounts that you don't want users to post to, you would turn this on. Everything else is pretty out of the box. You wouldn't really modify these fields here. The last thing I wanted to show is account type. So this is, I'm not sure if GP has this field here. So what this means is the selections here. Usually you would choose posting, so an account that you can post to. But there's these other fields here that are available. So heading, total, begin total, and end total. So what this means, if I go back to my list of chart of accounts, those fields populate this column here. So as you can see, when I open my chart of accounts, it's already displayed in sort of a financial statement type format, type listing. This wouldn't be where you would actually run your financials, but it does provide a good, quick overview of your different areas of your financials. So your assets, your liabilities, and your income statement accounts are in the bottom. So what determines how this all gets populated here and what order is the type of account type that you choose. So anything that's not bolded are your posting accounts, so you can post to those accounts. And then anything bolded is other types of accounts. So a heading account and your begin total and your total assets here. And then what specifies what the totals are is the calculation that you enter. So if I open total assets, that's this totaling feature here. So dot dot just means arrange. Okay, so that's kind of the high level of how to add a new account. So the next topic is how to actually enter a journal. So if I go to my search bar here and just search for journal, and then expand here, the 41 selections, you'll see that there's lots of types of journals that you can enter in Business Central, and it really depends on your job role. So if you're doing jobs, so jobs is kind of the project accounting equivalent. If you're doing sales journals, so maybe you're entering invoices, payment journals is where you would do your payment run. That's where you would start. For this webinar, I'll just go over how to enter a journal entry. So there's two main ways that you would enter a journal, a basic journal entry. I'll just go over the first type here. So you can just start entering your lines. So if I just enter the date here. So if I'll just show that again. So if I hit enter T, it actually does today's date. But you can also do 0309, and then it'll know it's the current year. And then document type, I just put test there. And then this is where you would choose your actual GL account you want to post to. So I'll just choose the first one here. And then if you keep tabbing over, anything with a red asterisk is a required field. So now I'll just put the amount, so $100. So in Business Central, positive numbers are your debits, and then negative is your credit. So for now, what I'm trying to do here is I'm debiting $100 to this GL account, okay? So right now it's out of balance, as you can see in the bottom here. So to balance that out, you would have to choose the account that you're gonna credit, and then you would put that here. So you can also search. So maybe I just want to search expense, and then it will filter it here. So once I choose that, you can see that the balance is now 0. So this entry is done here. Okay, and then you can start just adding more lines as you go. Another option you can do is if I take out this balance account, you can also just put it on the next line. So I do 0309 here, and then choose the account you want to credit. And as I said, negative is your credit. So then that balances that entry. Okay. And then there's option also to copy from Excel. So maybe you have a 100-line journal entry that you have in Excel. You can copy that and paste it into here as well. Okay, so that's one way of entering a journal, but there's another option you can do, which I'll go over here. So I'll just delete these 2 lines. If you click on page and show fewer columns, this journal will change. So you can see that the top here has changed, And the way it looks now is probably what you're used to in GP. So you can see that you would just enter your first line here. And then you now have two columns, your debit and credit. So I can just do $100 there, and then you can just go keep going as you go. Maybe you have more debits you want to enter, and then let's just balance this entry here. 150. Okay, so that's another way to, again, where I went there is I went to page. If I wanted to go back, I would go show more columns. But if I wanted to go to this format, this would say show fewer columns. Okay, so once you enter your journal, the recommended next step is to do a preview. So if I go to post and preview posting, this is a good thing to always do because it'll show any errors with your entry. So if there's anything that's missing, any required fields that are missing, it'll show you in this error log. So you can see that the document number is missing. So I'll just put one here. Oh, it cleared it out. Yeah, so it's a good idea to put that first because then once you enter a new one, it will clear the entry. If I just enter that again, okay, so that balances the entry. And then now if you do a preview posting, there should be no errors. And what you want is this page to populate. So what is the GL effect that the journal is going to be doing? So you can see the debit here of $100 to this account and the credit to this account. Okay. All right, so that's how you would enter a journal. Very, very basic information there. There's other ways to do this. Again, Excel is one way, and then you can also add dimensions to your entry. And yeah, so that's how to do a journal. So the next topic is how to run your a trial balance and your aging reports. So if I just search for trial balance, there's a few options. You can do a summary trial balance, which is this one here. Summary trial balance is just your opening balance of a GL account, the total net change, and the ending balance. Detailed trial balance, of course, is it has more details. So it has all the lines for all the transactions that went through a GL account, not just the total net change, but all the transactions. So this is one I'll go over here in this webinar. So when you're running any type of report, there's usually, the layout is very similar to any type of report you're running. So the top section usually has all the options or report parameters that you want to run. And then the bottom section will have the different ways that you can filter whatever report you're running. So in this case, filtering which GL accounts you want to include in your trial balance. So typically what I tell clients to do is always turn this on. So if you're running a report for multiple GL accounts, it's a good idea to have any new GL account to start on the next page. It's just a clean way of doing it. And then I usually leave the rest of the settings here. So then filtering, so maybe I just want to grab all the income statement accounts or all the balance sheet accounts. You can add a filter there. You can also just choose a specific GL account. You can also do various things here. So within these fields, there's some ways to pull in specific GL accounts. Maybe you want to do a range. So a range would be ... and then the next that you want to go up to. Another option is you can do either or. So above your enter key, there's this symbol here, this either or symbol. And now you can just choose your other GL account. Right, so this will pull in this GL account and this GL account. You can also do this GL account 109440 and also a range of these GL accounts, right? So creative ways that you can include certain GL accounts there. I'll go over this in more detail once we do the smart list like functionality later on. Okay, so for this example, I'll just choose income statement accounts. And then if these fields don't satisfy the ones you want to filter, there's also these other fields that you can use to do your filtering. Right? And then the last part is filter totals by. So typically we would want to do a range. So let's do January 1st to January 31st. I'm doing last year because my data here is a demo tenant, so it doesn't quite have 2021 data yet. So okay, so once that's all filled in there, you would hit preview. And then now it'll show all the GL accounts. And so for example, this one here, GL 40200, it has the opening balance as of January 1st, and then it has all the changes. So all the transactions that went through in January 2020, and then your ending balance there. And then if you keep scrolling, you'll see that the next GL account starts on a new page. Okay. Let's see. So you can do a preview, but there's also options to send this to PDF, Microsoft Word, or Excel, right? So those are the options in running this report. Okay, so that's your trial balance. The next type of report I wanted to show quickly is your aged report. So taxi aged, and then you'll see your aged accounts payable and aged accounts receivable report here. So I'll do the payables one. So as you can see, it's similar format. Your options at the top, and the bottom section is the ways you can filter. So so aged as of, let's do 2020 again. Actually, let's keep it there, so it'll capture everything. And aging method. So typically it's transaction date or document date. Rarely you would choose due date here. So length of aging periods, keep it at 30. And then I like to also, if I print it now without print detail, it'll just show the total for every vendor for each bucket. So the 30, what's due in 30 days and 60 days. If I turn this on, print detail, it'll show all the invoices that are due, show all the details of the invoices. Okay, and then as you can see in the bottom here again, there's different ways you can filter. So maybe there's a specific vendor that you want to get the aging report of. Maybe you want to pull in all the vendors with a certain field here. So let's see, maybe all the vendors from a specific city. You can add that filter. But for this example, I'll just do for everything. So I'll keep it as is, and then I'll hit preview here. Okay, so if I'll just zoom in there. So now you can see the first vendor here, Fabricam. This is the total balance due, and then what's due currently in 30, 60 days, and so on. And then there's the next vendor there. And then if you scroll in the very bottom, it should show the total due for all vendors. Okay. All right, so that's how to run a aging report. Let me just see what's next here. Okay, so the next feature I wanted to show is smart list functionality. So if I go back to my PowerPoint, so I quickly just did a screenshot of in a GP environment smart list. So I understand we do have a lot of GP customers here, so most of you are probably familiar with this feature in GP. With smart lists, what the main objective usually is you want to start analyzing data. So you have maybe all your payables transactions here, and what you're trying to do is these four functions. You're trying to do other things, but these are the main reasons you would use smart lists. So searching is how to filter your smart list. Columns is if there's a column here that you want to see and you want to pull it in. And then favorites, if you have a complicating filter, you can save it as a favorite. And then one of the top things is exporting the data to Excel. Okay, so within Business Central, there's no actual Smart List window you would open. The feature actually lives within all the list pages. So an example of a list page is your customers. This is considered a list page. All your master record type of data is considered a list page. So again, your chart of accounts, this is a list page. And then in terms of transactions themselves, an example would be all your ledger entries. So if I search for ledger entries and show all here, as you can see, there's different type of ledger entries depending on, again, the type of role that you do. So what ledger entries is it's all your posted data. So if you're entering invoices or payments for vendors, that would live on your vendor ledger entries. If you're doing sales invoices and cash receipts, that would live on your customer ledger entries. And then if you're doing, so anything that's posted to a GL account, that would live in your general ledger entries. Okay, so I will just use vendor ledger entries as my demo here. Okay, so as I mentioned before, with SmartList, you're trying to filter data, you're trying to save certain views and export to Excel. So the first thing is how to filter your data. So again, these are all vendor ledger entries, all the payments, all the invoices that went through to all these vendors. So to filter, you would just click this icon here. And then now you can, similar to when you're running a report, you can add fields as you go. So maybe I just want all the vendor ledger entries as of January 1st to January 31st. Actually, let's widen the range to March 31st. Okay, you'll see that this list has shrunken a little bit, so I can add more filters as I go. So maybe I just want, you can even do an amount filter. So if I go to amount here, I believe it's amount, yeah, amount. So maybe I want everything that's less than, because I see a lot of negatives here, so less than $2,000. Negative. Okay, so that's shrunken this so that it's all transactions, all lines with an amount of less than 2,000, negative 2,000. And then I can filter it even further. So maybe I want everything with payment method code of cash. Okay, so that filters it even further there. Before I move on, so again, with this amount filter here, if I go back to my PowerPoint, there's other creative ways to do your filter. So you can do equals, you can just enter an amount. You can do a range, which I showed briefly. Less than or greater than, you can add that. Not equal to 0, you can add that symbol there. Either or is something I showed earlier, and these other ones I don't use very often, but it is available there. And then in terms of date, again, if you just enter 27, it'll know current month and year, and 0527, it'll know current month of the current year, and so on. And then T is something I showed earlier on the journal. Okay, so again, you see, you can add more filters as you go and make this, get creative with what type of data you want to pull into here. Okay, and then if you do have a complicating filter that you enter here, maybe you have 10 to 15 fields that you're filtering on, and it's something that you run periodically, maybe every month you would run this report, and you don't want to keep entering these filters every time. So if you have one, you can just save it. So this save as filter here, I'll just do test. And then if I just exit here and then go back into vendor ledger entries, the saved view will, you can populate it here. You can just click this test one, but it's also, if this isn't there, you can click this drop down and click test one here. and then it'll remember that filter and display it for you. Okay, so if there's another thing with Smart List is you can add columns or hide columns. So to do that, maybe there's a column here that you want to filter on, but it's not showing up. So to do that, click this settings here, and then personalize. Let's see here. Oh, it's not cooperating here. So let's go to gender. Let's try this one. Sometimes my demo doesn't quite cooperate, but let's figure it out here. So personalize, more, and field. Okay, so I just used general ledger entries as my example here. So maybe there's a column that you don't see and you want to pull it in. So you would turn on your personalize function and then click field, and you'll see all the other fields that are available on the side here. So maybe I want to get the source code. So you just drag it in to wherever you want to put it here. And maybe there's a column here that I don't really need. I don't want to see on a regular basis. So you can click this red triangle here and hide. Okay, and you can continue as you go. Maybe you want other fields in there as well. Another thing with this personalized function is you can see that the freeze pane is currently frozen at these two fields here. To change that, maybe you want to display the GL account name as well, so you can set it here. So freeze pane. Okay, so that's another way to customize this. And just a note, this personalizing, it only affects your own user login, so you're not changing any settings with other users. Okay, so that's another feature there within a list page. Okay, so another thing here, so I actually wanted to go into vendor ledger because I wanted to do something with that filter. Oh, not that one. The last thing I want to show is if you go back to your filter that I created here, now you want to export this to Excel. So to do that, you just click Page and open an Excel. Okay, so then this will open the data in Excel, and then you can do your pivot tables or whatever you want with this data. All right, how are we doing on time? 11:30. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show is how to do a payment run. So if I go back to my home page here, the area you would start your payment run is through a payment journal. Okay, so this is where you would start your payment run. Can't recall how you would start in GP. I think there's the build payment batch screen that you would go into. So when you're paying vendors, if you have a single vendor that you want to pay, you can just populate this line, choose the vendor, and put in the amount, choose the invoices that you want to pay, and do that. You can manually enter it there. But typically when you're doing a payment run, you want the system to figure out which invoices are due, and then have the system pull that into this payment journal, right? So to do that, to start that process, you would go to Prepare and Suggest Vendor Payments. All right, so this is the screen that's really important to fill out here. So last payment date. So think of this as your cutoff date. So if you're using payment terms codes to enter your invoices, this will determine the cutoff date. So all invoices that are due as of a certain date. So depending on your company policy, you might be setting this to next week's date. So anything that's coming due as of next Monday or a certain date. If you're not doing payment terms codes, then this is kind of irrelevant. It'll just pull in all the invoices that are currently open and due in your system. Summarize per vendor, we like to turn that on. That just means it'll create one line for all invoices that are due for that vendor. And then posting date, starting document number, that's usually default to today's date. Okay, and then the bottom section here, it again is a way to filter. So maybe you just want to filter any vendors that have a certain payment method code or a different field here. But I'll just leave it all blank. So what this is going to do is pull in all invoices that are due as of April 30th for all vendors. So if I click OK there, okay, you have created suggested vendor payment lines for all currencies. So if I just click OK there, so now you can see that there's 4 lines here. You'll likely have more when you're actually doing a payment run, but for this demo, I have 4 vendors that have invoices that are due. So if I just scroll all the way to the right here, you can see the amount. So this is going to be the amount of the check or EFT that I'm going to be paying, and then other details there. So if I wanted to see what invoices this amount is actually paying for, I can just click anywhere on the line and go to process and apply entries. And then you can see that there's 2 invoices that it's paying. So this $987 one and $2,300 here. You can always remove, maybe there's an invoice here that you actually don't want to pay. You can click it and go to process and set applies to ID. So this will actually remove this from the check run. Okay. And then on the fly, you can do some edits here. So again, if there's a vendor here that you actually don't want to pay, you can just click on it and delete the line. You can also do select more and delete certain lines multiple. So for now, I'll just leave everything as is. So that's really the biggest first step, is figuring out which vendors you want to pay and populating this journal. The other steps are quite explanatory here. So if you're ready to print the check, you would just click check and print check, and then a window will pop up. If you find that maybe you misprinted a check, you can always void this whole batch. And what this will do is when you print the check, this check mark will appear. And then when you void it, the check mark will disappear, meaning you can just print the check again, right? Once you print the check and everything's all good and you're satisfied with how it printed, you would post the batch. So you click post and post. With the popularity of EFT, we do have a lot of customers moving to EFT. So there is that functionality in Business Central. The steps are quite similar here. So populating this journal would be the exact same steps, except when you don't print the check, you would go to first you go to bank and export, and then this is the step where it actually you can save those remittance statements or email those out to your vendors. That's what this function does. And then the last step would be you would go to actions, functions, and generate EFT file. So this is the step where you would actually generate that text file that you would upload to your bank. And this does take some steps set up to get your EFT working, because you would have to set up the EFT file format in Business Central and do some testing to make sure it all works with your bank. So those are the 2 steps for EFT. And then again, you would just post and post when you're done. All right. I think that's all I had there in terms of the agenda. So I just wanted to give a kind of a preview of the part 2 of this webinar, which is happening, I think, next month. So these are just a preview of the topics I'll cover in the next webinar. So if you're not signed up for that yet, I encourage you to do so. These are the ones that's scheduled. All right, I think that's all I have, and I'll send it back to Tess for any questions.
Great, thanks, Rudy. So if anyone has any questions, you can submit them into the questions area in your control panel, and we have time to answer them now, but there have been a few that have been submitted. So Rudy, the first question is, are you able to make mass edits on a group of accounts?
Yep, so that's, so I'll just go over some of the options there. So within let's go to vendors here. Actually, let's open it somewhere else. So vendors. Okay, so there's some options that you can do here. So a feature that I didn't really discuss yet is this edit in Excel feature. So there's some setup to get this to work. You kind of have to connect your Excel to Business Central. What this will do is actually export this whole list of vendors to Excel, and then you can do some mass updating to all the records, all the vendor records. And then once you're done with doing all those edits, there's a publish button in Excel that you would press, and then it will publish all those changes back to Business Central. So that's one way of doing it. There's another way to do mass updates called, if you use the configuration package feature. There's actually a blog entry that we did on how to use that feature. So you can use it to upload new vendors, but you can also use it to mass update certain fields for a vendor.
Thanks, Rudy. The next question is, for a general journal entry, can you do a correcting journal entry or adjusting journal entry?
Yeah, so within, so if you just search for general ledger entries, so anything that gets posted to a GL, again, all the posted data goes to general ledger entries. So within here, you can actually reverse, I think there's a feature here somewhere, reverse transactions. So when you do this, it reverses the whole journal that this line is involved in. So that's a quick way to reverse an entry. But again, this is only possible for things that you post directly to the GL. So if it's something that maybe an invoice that you entered and the GL effect gets posted to GL ledger entries, you wouldn't be able to reverse it this way. You would have to do the correct way, which is actually reversing the originating transaction, which is the invoice.
Okay, the next question is, are the list filter global or by user?
The list filter, I think you're meaning the list filter, like the ways you can filter the data. No, this is all global. So if you choose this posting date, that's the setting. You can filter any field there. Not quite understanding the question, but hopefully that gives you some background there. There's no limitation on how you can filter and which fields you can filter. All users would have access to filter any field.
And what about when you save the filter? Is that viewable by everyone or just by the user?
It would be viewable by everyone. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, can we have allocation accounts?
Yes, so there's that functionality. So actually in the next webinar, I'll actually go over that. So you can set up allocation accounts to go to certain group of accounts. I think what you're probably used to is in GP, I think it's called, can't remember the name of it, but there's fixed and variable.
Yeah.
Allocation accounts, right? Yeah, so you can set it up so that you can do that in Business Central. So a percentage goes to certain group of accounts. Yeah, so that's quite possible.
Next question is it possible to do general reversing entries and select different dates?
General reversing entries. Oh, I think you're talking about accrual entries. Yeah, so that's, again, that's another topic I'll go over in the next webinar. So if you go to recurring journals, recurring general. This is the main window that you would go to do accrual type entries. So you would set it up so that you would enter at a certain date, and then you can set it up to reverse the next month. So I'll go over this in more detail, kind of the steps and the background on some of these different fields in the next webinar.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Rudy. There haven't been any other questions that have come in. So maybe we can go back to the PowerPoint and I will close things up. So before we go, I just wanted to highlight two of the upcoming events. One of them that Rudy was talking about is on April 6th, which is part 2 to this webinar. And then another one about what's new with the release wave 1 is also happening in April. And then Rudy, if you could just go to the next slide. Just wanted to share in the chat here links to our upcoming events and setting subscription preferences, and to our Encore Care support page. So we have our quarterly events email that we send out about our upcoming events, and our newsletter is in there, and training and product and service enhancements. And then I just included a link in there for our Encore Care support. And that link explains the different features that are involved. And of course, you can always contact us if you have any questions about anything discussed today or anything involved with those links. So thank you, Rudy, for the information today, and thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.